All right, this is video lesson number 3 in the beginner ukulele series. So far we have learned a lot of great ukulele skills. We learned the string names, the parts of the instrument, how to hold the instrument, the correct posture, and we also learned a C6 chord, which is strumming the open strings. We learned a C7 chord, which is placing the first finger on the first fret of the A string. We learned a C chord, which is the third finger on the third fret of the A string. We learned an A minor chord, which is the second finger on the second fret of the G string. And we learned an F chord, which is the second finger, second fret G string, first finger, first fret E string. All right, a few other things that we learned that were important was to make sure that we press on the string with the tips of the fingers so that the fingers are nice and curved, and that the wrist is looking straight like this and not doing stuff like this, okay? And it's all interrelated to how we hold it. So, putting the end of the ukulele against the inner bicep and holding it in the crook of the arm like this, that enables you to have this relaxed, free positioning with your hand. This is really important because it kind of sets the groundwork for you to be able to move your hand freely and to be able to change chords without too much difficulty. It also helps if you use the tips of your fingers, which is also connected to keeping the wrist in that straight position. By using the tips of your fingers, you decrease the chances that your finger will lie flat, which then also could cause you to hit other strings when you try to make a chord, and that can be problematic whenever you start pressing. Like today we're going to learn a G7 chord, which is has 3 fingers down. So anyway, that's just a little information about that. I don't want to talk too much about it, but yeah. So those things are important and are laying a ground, stable foundation for you to build your ukulele playing. Okay, so let's get right into our new skills that we're going to learn. So let's see. Let's jump right into G7 chord. Okay, so this is the first chord where we're going to use 3 fingers. So if you remember, with the F chord, we did second finger, second fret G string, first finger, first fret E string, right? So with the G7, we are going to put 3 fingers down. Now, what's kind of cool about this is that you can actually use the first finger on the first fret of the E string as a reference finger, which will be helpful whenever we are switching between F and G7. Okay, so to play the G chord, or G7 chord, you do it like this. So, how do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret E string, second finger, second fret C string, third finger, second fret A string. Okay, so how do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret E string, second finger, second fret C string, third finger, second fret A string. So you'll notice that the second finger and the third finger are both on the second fret. One of them is on the C string and one of them is on the A string. And the first finger is in that same position that it is when you're playing the F chord. Okay, how do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string, second finger, second fret, C string, third finger, second fret, A string. How do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string, second finger, second fret, C string, third finger, second fret, A string. How do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string, second finger, second fret, C string, third finger, third fret, A string. How do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string, second finger, second fret, C string, third finger, second fret, A string. Okay, so that's the G7 chord, okay? So you can practice placing your fingers and you know, singing the placement of the fingers as you do it. Okay, so now we're gonna strum a G7 chord. Okay, so to do it, we're gonna go into our playing position with the ukulele on the inner bicep, and we're doing the downstrokes. So we place our fingers, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. My turn, ready, play. Your turn, ready, play. My turn, ready, play. Your turn, ready, play. My turn, ready, play. Your turn, ready, play. All right, so that is the G7 chord. Okay, so let's think about all the chords we know now. So we know a C6 chord, C7 chord, C, A minor, F, and G7. So what's cool now is that with those chords, you can play a lot of songs. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna do some of the practicing of switching between chords. This will help you to get your fingers and get used to changing in time, and then we'll do it in the context of a song. Okay, so we're gonna practice switching from C to G7. Okay, so how do you play a C chord? Third finger, third fret, A string. All right, so let's find the C chord, right? All right, how do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string, second finger, second fret, C string, third finger, third fret, A string. No, excuse me, third finger, second fret, A string. So now I find it valuable to think about guide fingers. So there's a little trick when you're switching from C to G7, and that is to use the common finger, which is the third finger, as your guide finger as you're switching. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, so we got our third finger on the third fret of the C string, and these two fingers are just kind of floating here, right? All right, so now when I slide, I'm gonna slide my finger over to the second fret. And now it's in the position that it would be in the G7. Okay, let's do that just a few times, just to get used to how that feels. So we're going from C. So there's something about taking what we already know and connecting it to the new information that makes it flow. So it's like, it's a little trick, right? All right, so anyway, we got the C, and then we're gonna slide the third finger over and back to C. Let's do that a few times. So C, slide, back to C, and slide, back to C, and slide, back to C, and slide, back to C. One more time, and slide, back to C. Okay, so now we're going to slide the finger over, and then we're going to place the other fingers. Okay, so I noticed that what happens with my fingers is I slide, and then the second finger goes down, and then the first finger goes down. So slide, second finger down, first finger down. Slide, second finger, first finger. 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 All right, now we're going to slide back. Slide, second finger, first finger. Slide back. Slide, second finger, first finger. So this is something that you can do, as many times as you need to get your fingers used to it. And it's good to isolate it and to do it without the strumming so that you can really focus on what's happening with your left hand. And what will happen is that you will internalize that, and that will become, like a subconscious thing where you won't have to think about it anymore and your hand will just do it. But right now when we're learning it, we have to really, it's helpful to isolate it. Okay, so now that we've practiced the motion, let's do it in time. So without strumming, in time. So we got our play position. We're going to do a 4 count of C and then a 4 count of G7. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G7, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G7, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G7, 2, 3, 4. C, 2. See how I'm sliding? G7, 2, 3. Slide back. C, 2, 3, 4. G7, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's that. Now we're going to do it with some strumming. So find our playing position. We're going to do a 4 count of C and then a 4 count of G7. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, G7, C, G7, C, G7, back to C, G7, back to C, G7, C, G7, C, slide, G7, slide back to C, slide to G7, C. Okay, so we're going to stop there with that. So that's changing from C to G7. Okay, so now we are going to practice switching between F and G7. Okay, again, kind of thinking about that principle of taking what we already know, taking what we're already doing and transferring it to something new. So what is common about F and G7? Okay, so one of the things is that the first finger is on the first fret of the E string. That's for both F and for G7. So when you're switching between F and G7, you can use that finger as an anchor point. Okay, so how do you play an F chord? Second finger, second fret, second finger, second fret, G string. First finger, first fret, E string. How do you play a G7 chord? First finger, first fret, E string. Second finger, second fret, C string. Third finger, second fret, A string. Okay, so what's happening is that this finger is going to remain the same place. The middle finger is going to move down one string. And then the third finger is going to go on the second fret of the A string, which is below the second finger there, right? So if you're on F, you're thinking about keeping the first finger down, moving second finger down one, and then the third finger placing on the second fret of the A string. So that makes it a lot less overwhelming, because it's just, you're like, oh, all I'm doing is moving this finger down and then here, like it's, you know, no big deal, right? Right. There's another thing that I learned from a violin teacher, but if you can make your fingers hammer, like practicing hammering your fingers is a great thing to do, because it really helps with your ability to, you know, to have dexterity and to move quickly with your fingers. So okay, all right, we got G7, F. All right, so now we're going to practice moving in time. So we're going to start with F, second finger, second fret, G string, first finger, first fret, E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, F, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, F, 3, 4, G7, 2. Now with strumming, F, G7, So we practice going from, F to G7. And now we're going to practice going F, G7, C. So we already practiced going from G7 to C separately. Now we're going to put it together using the 4 count so that we're playing in time. All right, so let's do it without strumming first. So let's place the F chord. So we're going to go F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. Place the F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're going to put it all together and play with the strumming. 1, 2, 3, 4, F, G7, C, F, G7, So that sounds like a song for sure. So that's the G7 chord, and we added that into switching from F to G7 and then to C, and then we did switching from C to G7. Let's try switching from A minor to G7. So A minor is very similar to F in that it has the second finger on the second fret of the G string. It doesn't, however, have the first finger on the first fret of the E string, which is the common finger when you're switching from F to G7. So if you do A minor to G7, you're not using that first finger as the reference point. But you can move your second finger down, and then so you can think about the second finger on the second fret of the G string moving down one. Then you place the E, and you place where the note is B, third finger on the second fret of the A string. Okay, so we're doing A minor, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's try playing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. A minor, G7, A minor, G7, A minor, G7, A minor, G7. Okay, so switching from A minor to G7. Okay, so I think that is going to be about it for our third lesson in our beginner ukulele series. So I'll make a 5-minute practice video with the key points that we learned in this lesson so that you can practice along. A lot of it is going to be switching from chords like C to G7, F to G7, A minor to G7. And then with that, in our next lesson, we're going to learn our first song that has chord changes in it. All right, so thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.